Will Ferrell used to be the biggest name in comedy. Before making it to the top, Will's journey was filled with rejection, failed stand-up gigs, and studios that didn't think he could carry a movie. But after building a comedy empire with Adam McKay, one shocking betrayal would change everything. And the craziest part is that his path to becoming a generation-defining comedy icon almost never happened. He fell in love with comedy at a young age, but he didn't professionally train or even formally practice comedy growing up. In fact, he never even saw comedy as being a full-time job.
I want like a real job. I didn't know what that meant, even though I loved comedy. I loved making my friends laugh. I loved watching comedy. I loved everything about it.
He was much more focused on sports in high school and even holds the record for most field goals in a season. He even tried out for USC's football team when he went off to college.
I tried walking on at USC, so I'm like, why not? I showed up.
Like, Hollywood wasn't even on his radar at this point, which makes everything about his time there just so ironic. Because USC is consistently ranked as the #1 film school in the US and one of the top acting programs. It's literally the perfect match for someone who'd like to have a Hollywood career similar to the one Ferrell ended up having. Yet he didn't participate in the film or acting programs. Hell, he didn't even take a film or acting class while he was there. Which really makes you think just how important really is an acting degree. Instead, he went for sports journalism with the goal of becoming a sports broadcaster.
SC had this program that was like sports journalism. Sports Center had probably just started. I want to be one of those guys,
Yeah.
And so I graduated and then was trying to get a job.
Which, if the movie Anchorman is any indicator, he probably would have been pretty damn good at it. Had he landed a job at ESPN, he very well could have been a household name in the world of sports and never even seen the big screen. And that's what makes all of this just so wild to think about. One small event didn't just change his entire life's journey, but the world of comedy as a whole. And that event would come shortly after graduating college.
And then when I was done with school, I still was like, and that's when I went to see my first show at the Groundlings.
Okay.
And I thought, whoa, that looks like fun.
If you're not familiar, the Groundlings is basically a breeding ground for comedy icons. After seeing this show, something just clicked for him. Instead of using his degree, he'd get a job as a bank teller and try his hand at stand-up comedy. Though this would not go how he'd hoped.
Every kind of local restaurant was starting to have a comedy night. And I would come back home and my mom would be like, how did it go? And I was like, thank God I have a college degree.
But contrary to what most would do, he kept powering forward. Though he was very much out of his comfort zone, and he said he was very quiet at this age.
To try to get people to come to my stand-up comedy show.
Oh.
And I was so quiet as a bank teller because I was so nervous all the time. And I had this manager go, I saw your flyer. You do stand-up comedy? And I go, yeah. She's like, I'd like to see that. And just walked away.
It was around this time that he decided to give up stand-up comedy altogether and return to the place that really sparked his interest, the Groundlings. And his failed attempt at stand-up comedy very well could have been what saved his career. He took classes here and performed for a few years. I'd share a clip of this sketch, but the audio was quite rough. Though it's still cool to see him in his early acting days. It was definitely during this time that he was slowly starting to figure out the kind of comedian that he was. Even if he views his comedy start as a failure, it no doubt helped pave the way for who he'd become. Because in the spring of 1995, everything would change.
Spring of 95 was when SNL was doing like a nationwide search for a brand new cast. It was going to be the last year for like Farley and Sandler and Dana Carvey and that whole group.
After years of trying to find himself comedically, he impressed Saturday Night Live creator Lorne Michaels and was invited to come to New York and audition for the show. Though it didn't go as smoothly as you'd think. While we've come to know Will as someone with unwavering confidence, this was not always the case. And he shared quite the insight into just what his mind looked like moments before his audition.
But I literally felt like my knees were going to buckle. You're trying to remember what you're going to do. You're just pacing. You're hearing the person on stage doing their audition, so you're trying to block that out. Then the doors just open and they're like, well, yeah, come on. I just have to do this now.
For reference, here's a snippet of his SNL audition.
If you don't get off the shad in 2 seconds, I'm gonna shove this spatula into orifices you didn't know you had.
But to his surprise, they enjoyed his audition enough to bring him back for a second round, meaning he was just one step away from changing his life forever. And so he got to work preparing his new material. But when he met with Lorne Michaels, he was told to scrap all of his material and come up with something entirely new last second.
He was forcing me to just come up with new stuff. So then I'm up till 2 a.m, redoing a brand new audition in my head. There I was that next day, just by the seat of my pants.
Which has got to be your worst nightmare in that moment. But somehow under all that pressure, he knocked his second audition out of the park and joined SNL in 1995, something that felt so surreal to him and was the first major milestone to pay off all of his hard work. Though it wasn't all smooth sailing, because he was met with awful reviews of his performances right off the bat.
Of my first show, very first show.
Yeah.
And it was like most annoying newcomer.
Though that was just a small bump in the road, because before too long, he'd become the face of the show, playing some of the most iconic characters, including Alex Trebek and George W. Bush, and headlining some of the most memorable sketches of all time, including More Cowbell. I remember Halloween, my senior year at university. After a night out bar hopping, I went back to my apartment and I just watched that sketch on loop for like 2 hours straight. And I swear, it just never gets old. But while all that was going on, he was quietly finding his way in the world of film, making his lead role debut in 1997's Men Seeking Women, which admittedly was more of a home video, but it was at least cool to see him act alongside Nightmare on Elm Street legend Lisa Wilcox. The following year, he'd star in the SNL movie Night at the Roxbury, which I really, really enjoyed.
No. Yes. Man, works every time. Yeah.
I remember seeing this one on vacation a few years back for the first time. I was looking for a comedy that I'd never seen before, and this one came up in the recommendations. I was super hesitant because I generally don't love super dumb, over-the-top comedies, but for some reason, this one just really pleasantly surprised me and worked. He'd followed up the next year with another SNL movie, Superstar, which I really didn't care for, but he was definitely one of the brighter spots. What I did find interesting about this movie, though, was that on the press tour, he spoke about how he still wasn't being recognized in public.
I'm kind of one of those people who kind of slips through the cracks a little bit. Where do I know you from? I don't even know if people know that's me.
Speaking of dumb and over-the-top comedies that I didn't expect to like, I thought he was actually really good in Zoolander 2 years later. By now, he was on everyone's radar, and SNL made him their highest-paid cast member to the tune of a $350,000 salary. But this was only enough to keep him on the show for one more year, as he'd make the incredibly difficult decision to leave the show that made him a star. And this was a high-stakes gamble. He had comfort and stability at SNL while being far from a movie star at this point. Though he looks back on his days at SNL with nothing but positivity.
I had a great 7 years on the show, and I just, I had fun like every single week doing that show.
Man, yeah.
This was only the beginning, though, because Will's life was about to change from medium-grade TV star and small-time movie guy to something much bigger, and eventually into one of the biggest stars in the world. Things would really start popping off the second he left SNL. It started with Old School, but there was a major problem. Despite his run on SNL, DreamWorks didn't believe in him, and director Todd Phillips had to convince them just to let him be in the movie.
Vince wasn't a huge comedy guy at that time, you know. I remember having to convince DreamWorks to put Vince in Old School, and and Will Ferrell even, you know, he'd been on Saturday Night Live, but he hadn't done Elf yet.
And how silly do you think they feel after the fact? This was actually the second uncensored R-rated movie I ever saw in my life. I remember I was in 8th grade, it was family movie night on a Friday night, and for whatever reason my dad picked this movie, and my parents were like really strict about R-rated movies, so I was like 13 at the time. I remember my mom, my brother, my dad, and my mom and brother were just so pissed that I was in the room watching this movie, and it was just so awkward because it definitely is one of the more raunchy comedies ever made, and you know, I just really couldn't enjoy the movie because there was all this emotional warfare going on in the room, and you know, it was a real shame because this movie's like literally made for 13-year-olds. But I watched it again as an adult, and it's a really funny movie. It actually has one of my favorite comedy bits of all time.
Hey, a little housewarming to new beginnings.
Thanks. Actually, I gave this to you for your wedding.
This model?
No, this exact one.
But Old School was only the beginning, because the same year he'd starred in an even bigger movie. Though much to the contrary of the raunchy nature of Old School, Elf was very much a family-friendly comedy, and one he knew would be polarizing.
I knew it was either gonna really work or really fail.
This fear followed into the testing of the film, He talked about how it tested extremely well with families, but when it came to testing with adult audiences, the anxiety crept in.
So we just had the first one, and it went really well. But I'm looking at the crowd line up for the second screening. It's like a bunch of frat guys from USC, and we might get eviscerated. But it played for that audience too. Maybe this will work as one of those rare movies that works for everyone.
At the time of shooting the film, he actually wanted to make the humor a bit more adult-based.
We knew it was going to be, definitely a Christmas family movie.
Yeah.
I maybe wanted to push at times maybe the comedy a little bit more.
But they apparently did something right, because the movie grossed over $200 million at the box office, led to an animated TV special, and even launched as a Broadway musical. I think it's safe to say at this point that he was definitely well past his slipping through the cracks phase that he mentioned on Superstar. But the following year, the trifecta that launched him into A-list status was about to be completed. And I'm not talking about his cameo in Starsky and Hutch, though I'll continue to beat on the drum that it's one of the most underappreciated comedies of all time. I'm talking about Anchorman. One of the most loaded comedy casts ever, and one of the most influential comedies of the decade. It also launched one of the most powerful actor-director relationships of all time between Will and Adam McKay. Though believe it or not, this movie was actually not a breeze to get made.
At the time, we got rejected. I think we got rejected 20 different times from various studios and financiers and everything like that.
That's fascinating.
Like no one could kind of wrap their head around an ensemble comedy that took place in a newsroom.
But they finally got the funding. And it was an especially unique opportunity for Will, not only because he helped write it, but because the subject matter was close to home.
Any inspiration from people that you watch and famous newscasters?
I was like a weird news junkie as a little kid. Yeah, so I would watch all the local guys.
I also never knew that this line was improvised.
Milk was a bad choice.
In that moment, why did you give me a carton of milk as we're shooting in LA on a 98-degree day? And I literally was like, milk was a bad choice. Because I'm I'm having to drink hot milk in this scene.
But just like that, Will would go from being unrecognizable to someone the studio thought couldn't carry a comedy to all of a sudden being an Adam Sandler level star. 2005 would prove to be a record-setting year for him, as he'd acted in a whopping 6 movies, which included a cameo in one of my favorite movies of all time, Wedding Crashers.
Dude died in a hang gliding accident. What an idiot. Oh, I'm hang gliding, honey. Take a good picture. I'm dead.
Though he almost wasn't even in this movie, as he didn't confirm his availability until the night before.
It was really funny. And so we got, we were trying to get Will. We didn't get Will till midnight the night before he was shooting. It was one day.
Oh, wow.
We were having a very hard time confirming him. And we had Nick Cage as a backup.
I was only 6 years old when this movie came out, so I obviously didn't see it in theaters. But legend has it, as told to me by one of my friends, that nobody knew Will was going to be in this movie. And the second he was revealed on screen, the entire theater erupted in applause. Of course, his most iconic line in the movie is this.
Hey, Mom! The meatloaf! We want it now! The meatloaf!
But you may not know that that line was improvised.
Thinking it was so funny that my mom is back there, so I just started screaming, Mom, more meatloaf. I don't know, we just were messing around that day. But
I love him so much in this movie that I even named my fantasy football team after his character and use him as my profile picture. But the momentum didn't slow at all, with him starring in 3 movies in 2006, all 3 of which were very different from each other. He got to start with children's animation, voicing the man with the yellow hat in Curious George.
The man in the yellow hat, yes, there was a lot of pressure to create this iconic figure, but I fought through it with a lot of therapy, and I'm not going to say I didn't cry myself to sleep at nights on occasion, but I was able to battle through.
He headlined a fan favorite in Talladega Nights.
I like the Christmas Jesus best, and I'm saying grace. When you say grace, you can say it to grown-up Jesus or teenage Jesus or bearded Jesus or whoever you want.
And he really mixed it up with his most dramatic role ever, playing Harold Crick in Stranger Than Fiction. I wasn't sure about this one, considering what I associate Will Ferrell with, but he actually absolutely knocked this role out of the park.
No, it's not schizophrenia. It's just a voice in my head. The voice isn't telling me to do anything. It's telling me what I've already done, accurately and with a better vocabulary. I'm somehow involved in some sort of story. I could change. I could quit my job. I could go away. I can't die right now.
Even if you avoid this death, another will find you.
It feels borderline illegal to say this, considering this channel is all about comedy movies, but I actually thought this was Will's best performance and his all-around best movie ever made. He'd follow up this run with 3 of his goofiest movies in Blades of Glory, Semi-Pro, and Step Brothers. I know this is sacrilegious, but these weren't my favorites. Like, I don't think they're the worst movies, but they're also just a little too out there for me. Step Brothers was especially important, though, because it marked a major milestone. It wasn't just the 3rd movie that he did with Adam McKay, but it was also the first they produced together under their newly formed production company, Gary Sanchez Productions. They were building quite the empire, and the thought of it ever ending would have felt insane at the time, only making what would eventually come to the relationship even more mind-blowing. The two went on to do The Goods, Live Hard, Sell Hard the following year, and while Will only played a bit role, this is one of the greatest unheard of comedies I've ever seen.
That kids, customer hates you. That wife, customer pities you. Shit, Zuha, that's the best fat wife I've seen in 4 or 5 years. Can I have a copy of it?
And if you've never seen this movie, give it a shot. It's really, really funny. The dynasty would only grow, with the other guys coming just 1 year later. Probably my favorite all-time action comedy. Will really wanted to work with Mark Wahlberg, and thankfully for him, the interest was mutual.
Dying to work with Will. I was dying to do a comedy, and who better to do it with? You know, him and Adam invited me to dinner and asked me if I would be in the movie with them. I said, are you kidding? I didn't even have to read the script or hear the story.
I always loved the running gag in this movie about Will's wife being ugly.
Who are you?
I'm Dr. Sheila Gamble, his wife.
Sweetie, it's a workstation.
Got it.
And you come in here dressed like a hobo. It's distracting.
I know you're working. I'm so sorry.
Come on. Not right now.
Okay.
Look, they're not all first-round picks, okay?
Which he said was one of the hardest scenes not to break on.
How hard is it to pretend that Eva Mendes is not hot? Sorry, that had to have been the hardest thing.
It's pretty hard. Yeah, that's pretty ridiculous. Well, talk about trying to keep a straight face.
And the hits kept coming with another animated movie in Megamind. The Campaign, a comedy with Zach Galifianakis that I thought would have been hilarious, but was incredibly disappointing. And then Anchorman 2, the final movie he'd ever work on with Adam McKay, which we'll get into why this is in a little bit. This film really felt like it was a product of audience demand.
Just never thought about ever doing sequels. We were just always on to the next story, and we were more excited about that. Anchorman, though, was unique in that it sat on the shelf and over the years just grew and grew and grew and woke Adam and I up to the idea of revisiting these characters, and why not? It's the most fun movie any of us have done.
And it had one of the most clever marketing campaigns I've ever seen. Will did a nationwide tour and characters around Burgundy, which included co-anchoring a local news program.
And now Jared joins us with a first look at the forecast. Last time I saw you, you were a lot heavier. I feel like you lost like 50 pounds.
Addressing Emerson College via an open Q&A.
Go.
Thank you, I'm a big fan.
Maybe wear a shorter skirt.
Visiting Conan as Ron.
Yes. Babies have gotten uglier in this country.
You think babies in America have gotten uglier?
Well, I don't think it's a fact.
And even interviewing Peyton Manning on ESPN.
Any truth to the rumor of a Manning sister, Gloria Manning, who weighed 285 pounds as a freshman in high school and ran a 4.3 40 and was frankly a better football player than all of you?
This felt less like marketing and more like a national event, which makes me think more movies nowadays should try gimmicks like this. This effort was paid off, with the movie grossing over $170 million off of a $50 million budget. I really, really enjoyed this one. I thought it was even funnier than the original.
Hello, Mr. Burgundy.
Oh, black. I'm terribly sorry. I don't know why I can't stop saying black. Black. If I don't say it, I'll pass out. We've been rocking that headboard every night. Am I right?
Oh, no, we don't have conversations like that over there.
I'm just saying I'm knocking those boots 24/7, my man.
And I was shocked to see that the critics liked this one more than the original as well. His historic run continued with the massive blockbuster hit, The Lego Movie, which grossed nearly $500 million off of a modest $60 million budget. And then he'd crush it with 2 more comedies the following year, Daddy's Home and Get Hard, both making healthy profits. I barely remember anything about the movie Get Hard, but I do remember that this was the first R-rated movie that I ever personally bought a ticket to. In fact, actually got the ticket on me still. I remember it was my junior year of high school, and a couple of guys in my French class wanted to go see this. They were 17, I was 16, and they said, that's fine, we'll just go to the movie theater that doesn't card. My heart was like pounding out of my body. I remember walking up to the concession stand, and the girl working there was like, what can I get for you? I was like, can I get one for Get Hard? And then she just sold it to me. Like, Pretty anticlimactic, but it was really just that easy. And I remember we definitely laughed throughout the entire movie, but I could barely tell you anything that actually happened in the movie. Needless to say, this is definitely not one of my top Will Ferrell movies. But his run as a leading man was about to come to an end, and way faster than you'd imagine. Zoolander 2 was a massive flop, only grossing $56.7 million. Daddy's Home 2 did okay, but was also a pretty big drop-off financially from the original, and then Holmes & Watson was an even bigger flop than Zoolander 2, making back just around its budget. But when you account for the theaters taking roughly half of the box office revenues, this movie lost big time. I remember seeing Holmes & Watson in theaters as well. I remember this movie being just like really dumb, but I was also thoroughly entertained by it. There was this like 70-year-old guy in front of me who clearly hated the movie. And I remember I just kept on laughing at all of the jokes in the movie. And I remember at one point, the guy just turned around and looks at me and goes, "That's enough. I'm laughing at a comedy movie." Like, do you yell at someone when they scream in a horror movie? But the whole thing reminded me of this cutaway gag from Family Guy.
Will you shut up? You shut up, man. It's a comedy.
Thankfully, he was at least able to have some fun during the stretch by giving the commencement speech at his alma mater.
I would also like to apologize to all the parents who are sitting there saying, "Will Ferrell, why Will Ferrell?"
Because not only was Holmes & Watson one of the last theatrical comedies he'd ever star in, the creative partnership that defined his entire career was about to completely implode. Because in 2019, Adam McKay would stab Will in the back and effectively end their run together. Will was supposed to star in Adam's new series titled Winning Time: The Rise of the Lakers Dynasty, but Adam had a change of heart, and when Will found out, it apparently devastated him. Adam recounts the events, saying, "Ferrell took it as a way deeper hurt than I ever imagined, and I tried to reach out to him, and I reminded him of some of the slights that were thrown my way that were never apologized for. I didn't want to hurt his feelings. I wanted to be respectful. I should have called him, and I didn't. I said, well, I mean, we're splitting up the company," and he basically was like, "Yeah, we are," and basically was like, "Have a good life." And I'm like, Ferrell's never going to talk to me again. So it ended not well. And McKay added that years later, he sent Will several emails, but never got a response. I really don't understand why Adam did what he did, especially after all they accomplished together, with Will being the face of all of it. I definitely see where Will's coming from. So it launched a whole new phase in Will's career, with very few leading roles since. Only Eurovision, Spirited, Strays, and You're Cordially Invited, which might sound like a lot, but at the same time, you gotta remember during his peak, he was starring in multiple movies a year. I do try to support him and the genre whenever I can, so I did see Strays in theaters, and it really wasn't my thing. I couldn't connect with it, probably because all of the characters were dogs and not humans. It also had a devastating performance at the box office, only grossing $36 million off of a $46 million budget. And as much as I absolutely hate straight-to-streaming movies, I did plug my nose and watch You're Cordially Invited in preparation for this video, which Will was apparently super high on doing this movie because he always wanted to work with the director.
Nick Stoller, done so many funny movies. We've been dying to work together, and he called me up. He's like, "I've got basically 2 weddings booked at the same destination on the same date," and just starts laughing. I'm in. Yeah, sounds good. Sounds great.
I mean, it stars Will Ferrell. Reese Witherspoon is one of my top 5 comedic actresses, and it even has the girl from Blockers. And this one really surprised me. Like, I actually couldn't believe what I was watching. It was way worse than I could have imagined. For one, it does the exact thing that Matt Damon warned us about with straight-to-streaming movies, in that it rehashes the plot every 5 minutes. I just didn't get the humor.
Big Papa, Big Woo! Break it down. Yeah, keep it going. Don't stop. Right. You get anxiety from dialing a phone? I can do anything that doesn't require a phone call.
And then as a cardinal sin, the movie just straight up lectures you.
Lady, I mean, she got under my skin.
Don't call her lady.
Why not? She is a lady.
Yeah, but men only use the term lady when they're mad at a woman. It's super sexist.
Part of me feels bad about being so ruthless about this movie, but then I just remembered that this is literally the textbook example of everything that's been wrong with comedies for the past decade. It's just corporate slop. Like, this was nobody's baby. No one felt passionate about this movie, and it's honestly just sad to see what they did to Will. I wish I had some good news to share. But Will's 2 upcoming movies are Judgment Day, which is another straight-to-streaming Amazon movie by the same director, and a Netflix original comedy produced by and starring Kim Kardashian. I don't think I need to elaborate. I guess the one glimmer of hope that I can offer you is that he's joining the likes of Seth MacFarlane, Marlon Wayans, and Jonah Hill in the fight to bring comedies back to theaters.
When you sit and watch a comedy with an audience, you're reminded as to how much more fun it is.
Right.
I'm trying to get that back.
Will's had a Hall of Fame comedy career, even getting to star in the Hollywood Walk of Fame. So fingers crossed to better days, because comedy's just better when Will's at the center of it. If the world needs anything right now, it's great comedy movies. And fewer comedies have had a more insane journey than Superbad. It took over a decade to get greenlit. The cast hated each other at first, and one of its stars almost quit acting entirely because of the movie's success. And somehow these aren't even the craziest things that happened. I take you on its incredible journey here.